So, good morning, everyone. I thank everyone for joining this webinar from my survey to Kodeeswari, the NRI guide exclusively for women NRIs. So, you are an NRI, want to start your investment in India or already started, might be like confused. So, if you are an investor confused where to start, don't worry. By the end of this webinar, all your doubts will be answered. So let me quickly tell you who is an NRI according to Foreign Exchange Management Act. So the person must be living outside India as per FEMA's residency rules. So that is stays in India less than 182 days. So I'll quickly give you two examples. One is Arjun who stayed in India for only 120 days and moved abroad for employment. So he becomes an NRI under FEMA. So on the other side, we have Priya, who stayed in India for 200 days. Even she moved abroad, FEMA still treats her as a resident, not a NRI. Now let me tell you why one should invest in India. So the first and the major reason will be the high growth economy. So India consistently remains the fastest growing economy among G20 countries, where the GDP growth is expected to stay in 6 to 7% range. So obviously it's high growth, high corporate earnings, high equity returns. Also, the opportunity is also big. And the second one is young and rising consumer base. India nearly have 60% of the age group between 25 to 35 years. So automatically high earning consumer base creating expansion in every sectors like be it IT, banking, housing, consumer, infra, and so on. And the third one is global manufacturing shift. So for decades and for so many long time, so we were depending on China, where they played a big manufacturing hub. So now after this China plus one policy, after this China plus one shift, companies worldwide are diversifying supply chains. India is becoming manufacturing alternative to China. So this booms the sector like electronics, defense, pharma, auto. And moreover, India's growth is not accidental. It is a process involved like so many decades to attain this stage, be it transparency in digital banking and end-to-end process, etc. So Indian companies are entering multi-year earnings growth phase due to higher opportunity in operating leverages, lower debt, better utilization, export demand, etc. And this is a huge advantage in NRIs. So when the currency fluctuates, it gives like natural hedge to the investment, higher NRI returns compared to savings abroad, also along with long-term compounding in a growing currency base. So these are the main opportunities. Being an NRI, you should look on this. And like I've said, why someone should invest in India. So now you can ask me like through which account. So basically, everyone will be aware of the NRE and NRO. So to give more clarity on that, I'll just explain it. And by this, you can like decide or get a clarity of which account you should use. So NRE is basically a non-resident account to park foreign. So NRE is an account to park foreign income earned outside India, fully repatriable and tax-free in India. Coming on the other hand, we have NRO account. It's an account to use manage income earned in India, be it rent, interest, dividend. So it's partially repatriable and taxable in India. So here is a broader differentiation between NRE and NR. So the main purpose of NRE is to park, transfer foreign earnings with full repatriability, whereas in NRO, it's to manage income earned in India. For say some of you will be in the idea of settling down in India. and this would be like useful in comparable to INR. So next, coming to repartibility. In NRI account, the principal and the interest is fully repartible, whereas in NRO, interest is fully repartible, whereas principal you can like transfer it only up to a limit that is $1 million per year. Coming to the deposits and withdrawals, you can deposit in foreign currency in NRE account, withdraw in INR. Whereas in NRO, deposits are done in INR or foreign currency, but the withdrawal is only through INR. And if you want to have joint account in NRE, only with NRI is possible. And in NRO account, you can either have NRI as your with the NRI with a joint account or Indian citizen. And coming to the inter-transfer, in NRE, you can easily transfer it to any NRO account. But in NRO account, that is possible, but there are so many restrictions. Like you can transfer only this much account for this period. So taxability, which is the important aspect in NRE and NRO account, where in NRE account, it is tax-free, but in NRO account, it is taxed up to 31.2%. So till now, you would have got the idea of investment opportunities and which account to open. Now, coming to the tax, to explain this, I invite Ms. Aishwarya to take it forward from here.
Great. Thanks, Kaushika. I'm sure you all have gotten like a basic idea of what it means for NRIs to invest, especially if their home country is India, right? And a lot of you might be thinking about taxation, and that's something that that's a question that we get asked a lot, right? So before we get into DTAA, which is the Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, I will just quickly brief you on whatever we have discussed so far. We saw the concept of who is an NRI under FEMA. It's the same as what the ITR says. So ITR says whoever is not a resident is considered an NRI, right? And the definition of NRI you get in FEMA. And why should NRIs invest in India? We all know what a growth story India is going to be. We have a lot more disposable income on our hands being consumers. And as investors, our first thought should definitely be into moving our money or a larger chunk of our disposable income into investing and making our future better for ourselves. And India provides you that opportunity right now, given how the markets are performing, given how externalities are working in our favor. India is definitely the next growth story, and maybe for the next 10 years, it's going to be the same. Now, quickly moving into DTAA, right? I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this concept and know of it. Does anybody want to volunteer and maybe put your answers in the chat box? Just quickly, what is DTAA? We all know that it's Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, but what is the concept of it? Okay, so DTAA is basically a tool that probably helps you save a lot of money when it comes to paying taxes in two countries, right? I'll break this down into a simpler version for all of you. So by definition, DTAA is an agreement between two countries. Say in case your country is India and say a country that you work in, whether it's US or UAE or Singapore. Here we'll focus more on UAE and Singapore and other Middle Eastern countries. So the agreement basically defines how exactly and where your income will get taxed. And think of it this way. Without DTAA, right, you could potentially be taxed in both countries on the same income, which will lead to you maybe spending much more than what you actually should be. Right? So, for example, say you're working in Singapore or in the Middle East, and or maybe even US for that matter, and you also earn some income in India. So the US government says that you earned this money in the US, so you owe us taxes. At the same time, India looks at the same income and says you're an NRI and this is global income, we want our share too. And this is called double taxation, right? You get double taxed on the same income, but that's unfair. Now that's where this regulation of DTA even comes into play, right? But before we go into this further, let me define what DTA is not, because there is a lot of, that's where most of the confusion is. DTA is not an exemption from taxes. You are still going to pay taxes, but we're just deciding where and how much you'll pay them, just ensuring that you don't pay it twice, right? And it's not a loophole. It is a legitimate international regulatory framework, and it's recognized by all required authorities. And it's, again, just like how there's a misconception and a myth that investing is only for the rich, DTAA is not for the rich. Investing also is not only for the rich, right? Whether you're earning 50 lakhs, 2 crores, 10,000, anything, working abroad, all of these benefits apply to you. But it's just a matter of how you want to implement it in your scheme of things, right? Now, why does DTAA matter so much for NRIs, right? So DTA essentially is the foundation which allows all global investors to stay compliant with the tax laws without losing on that substantial return to overlapping taxes, right? So when it comes to a concept like DTAA, there is a unilateral agreement and there is a bilateral agreement, which means in case of a unilateral agreement, only one of the countries agrees to DTAA. The other ones will still require you to pay upfront entirely. In case of a bilateral agreement between, so the bilateral agreement basically eliminates or minimizes the incidence of double taxation on the same income, whereas unilateral does not do that for you. So plain, it means two countries, one income, one tax obligation. That's what DTAA ultimately promises you. So when you as an NRI, you earn income both in India and your country of residence, both these countries could theoretically claim tax rights over it. That's where DTA steps in and says, you know what, I will save you from being taxed twice. So before I get into the different methods of how it works, I'll run over the key principles of DTA. First one being residency-based taxation, wherein you generally pay taxes in a country where you reside and not where you earn. And there are specific income categories, right? Different types of incomes have different tax treatments under DTA. You have income from salary, you have income from rent, you have capital gains, you have dividends, etc., etc. Next, you have tax credits or exemptions. Depending on the DTA agreement, you either get credited, paid, which is what I mean by the tax credit method on this slide. Depending on the agreement, you either get credited for taxes paid in one country, or the income is completely exempt in that country. For example, UAE. And there's something called a dispute that if suppose there is any disagreement about where you should be taxed, your solution is DTA, and that's what will end up resolving it. Okay. So the two primary methods used in DTA, one is the tax credit method and the other one is the exemption method. Okay, so let's look at the tax credit method first. I have an example for both. Tax credit method, step one, let's look at income is being earned in the foreign country. Okay. Now you're an NRI from India's perspective, of course. So India wants to tax this global income. Now DTA says, India, you can tax this income, but you must give credit for the taxes that have already been paid in the US or anywhere. Right? So if the tax rate in that country is higher, you pay nothing extra. If India's tax rate is higher, you only pay the difference to India. Right? Quick example I'll give you over here. There's an NRI who earns 10 lakhs and pays 1.25 lakhs in India as tax. So long-term capital gains taxed at 12.5%. right? US tax is 1.5 lakhs. This is just an example. The US tax is 1.5 lakhs. And under DTA, they get credit for the Indian tax. So they end up paying only 25,000 over this. So 1.25 in India plus another 25. So you essentially 5 in total. Now in the ads, they've paid 1.25 in India and 1.5 in the US, which totals to 2.75. Here you're saving that additional 1.25 because of DTA. So what you ultimately end up getting is about 8.5 lakhs, as opposed to, say, if you were not eligible under DTA, you would have paid 2.75 out of the 10 lakhs, which would have left you with about 6.75 lakhs, right? So here you're still getting to keep another 1.25 lakhs, and it leaves you with a larger chunk of money, which is 8.5 lakhs. So this is basically what DTA can do to you. Here the credit comes where, so US says 1.5, India says 12.5. So 1.25, which means over and above 1.25, I will end up paying only 25,000 more just to even out or balance out that tax base, right? Second is the exemption method. So now there's a Dubai-based NRI, and he makes about 40-50 lakhs of profit from mutual fund, right? Normally his tax would be about 8 lakhs. Now under the India UAE DTA Act, that is a bilateral agreement. So the investor only pays tax in UAE, right? And UAE has zero capital gains tax. So he ends up paying zero tax and gets all of the profit that he has made, right? So quickly steps, again, this method may be a lot more favorable than the tax credit method because you pay tax only in one country, not two. Quickly, step one, you earned income in a foreign country. So you earn some sort of capital gains and your home country exempts it, right? DTA says India will not tax this income at all. Only the country where you earn it will tax it. So you pay it only to that source country at their rate. Now, a country like UAE does not want you to pay taxes. So you end up paying zero taxes and you're left fully with the 8 lakhs in hand, right? So with these two methods available, when does each of these methods apply? For maybe tax credit method may apply to somebody who's maybe a salary person or somebody who's earning pension, right? Exemption may apply to certain types of income like dividends or certain income buckets that maybe the DTA exempts, right? So this is what I had for you about DTA. You can feel free to put all your questions in the chat box and I will be more than happy to take it towards the end of the webinar. And I'd like to now hand it over back to Kaushika to take this presentation forward.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Now it is a time to ask yourself or your mom or your grandmother, like any women you come across, why do they always invest in traditional investments like gold, real estate, post office schemes, but why not mutual fund? So I believe that it is mostly because of lack of awareness and fear. So let me break down all those fears for you. So when we compare any traditional method, be it like real estate or gold, so can you agree there is no risk in all that? There is a risk in all the investment. So when you compare the returns that traditional investment gives to the mutual fund, it's like huge. So in this traditional investment, that also give returns. But when you compare it with mutual fund returns, it is very less. So in a long term, you could see the magic of your money growing. That happens mostly because of compounding in mutual fund and also through cost averaging. You have like so much flexibility in investment. So which are not available in your traditional investment. For say, you're buying on land and it is kept like which is not even like you have not used it. But if you think that is giving any returns in a long term, it will give for sure. But when you compare the returns which is given by the traditional investment and the mutual funds, it is like really huge. So these are the methods that you can put your money and see more returns. So you can start your mutual fund investment through monthly SIP, and over a period like you can step it up yearly, and also through lump sums you can put your money and see the returns. Now let me quickly give you one rule, like that is a rule of 72. So this is the interesting rule that you can calculate in how many years my investment doubles. Like how you do this is simply by dividing 72 with the annual rate of return. For example, my annual rate of return is 12%. So the money how many years it takes to double. So this is the idea behind this rule. So I'm dividing 72 by 12. So in that case, my money will be double in 6 years. So you can also do your calculation with this rule. So here we come to the end of our session. I invite Aishwarya to take this ahead from here.
Great. So we are getting closer to the end of the webinar. Just a small comparison, a small piece of data that you might find interesting, because we are also hung up on traditional investments. Now we know how the NRI scheme works, what's DTA, but we still have to ask ourselves if we are investing in the right vehicles which will take us to our goals eventually, right? Maybe 10, 15 years ago, maybe an FD was working, an RB was working, or gold was working, physical gold as an investment was working. But do you think it's time that we move towards other alternatives? There are so many other alternatives that have come up. Even if you have to take an example of FD versus FD. FD, say in a country like UAE versus FD in India, you'd rather invest your money in an FD in India because you're earning 6.5% return. Whereas in an FD in the UAE, you're getting only about 3.5%. 3.5. So you're doubling your return by just investing in an FD in India. But that does not take away from the fact that there are instruments that can give you the path to long-term wealth creation. So just look at this chart. Say you save 1,000 rupees every month in a bank RD, in gold, and in a mutual fund SIP. So in every year, you see that the amount is incrementally growing. But when you compare bank RD and gold to mutual fund SIP, the power of compounding is much higher and your money grows at a much faster rate. So in bank RDs and gold, your money grows at or increases at a decreasing rate. But in case of a mutual fund SIP, your money increases or grows at an increasing rate. So it just goes up after a certain point. Time does the work, money does all of the heavy lifting for you. So if you're wondering which investment vehicle to use, I think it's about time that we move away from traditional investments, or maybe just keep a certain amount, maybe a small amount in it, because I'm sure we all have our family sentiments and other things that we think about. But you should definitely think about vehicles like a mutual fund or PMS for that matter. Now, how we help you achieve all of your goals here at Kodeeswari, we break them down into small, achievable, and tangible milestones. You start at 0. So this is a program under Milestones to Wealth, where we help all investors to reach their first crore, and of course, help them beyond as well. Many people feel like the first 1 crore is unattainable or it's too far away, I won't be able to do it. But we break it down to small, achievable milestones for you, so that at every juncture, we celebrate the milestone and we tell you that you are, just one step closer to becoming a Kodeeswari. So we start at 2 lakhs and then we go to 5. From 5, we go to 10. 10, we go to 25. From 25, 50, 50 to 1. But if you have already looked at this chart, right? Even the numbers that we show you are not equidistant from each other. That is because compounding does the work for you. So if you get on the program, you will easily be able to achieve your goals and financial dreams for whatever it is that you're saving for. And what the financial blueprint here at Kodeeswari looks like is that, of course, we help you build an emergency fund first. That always comes first. Once you have that cover, we help you with insurance, term insurance, health insurance, and these things have to be in place. And then we discuss what your goals are, what exactly is it that you're investing for, and we map each SIP to a certain goal. Maybe for somebody it might be retirement, maybe for somebody it's child's education, maybe for somebody it's their child's marriage. Yeah. And then we constantly track whether your investments are on the right path, and we map all of these goals to a certain fund. Maybe if it's something that you are not going to expect if you're not going to expect money out of it for some time, or going to pull money out of it for a long time, then probably we will suggest a certain type of fund, right? We have equity funds, we have debt funds. Under equity, we have broad-based, we have thematic, we have sectoral. Under broad-based, we have large cap, mid cap, small cap, flexi cap. So each of these goals will be assigned to a certain fund. And of course, that's also depending on what kind of an investor you are. Are you an aggressive investor, or are you a moderately conservative or a conservative investor? It depends on how much risk you're able to take, how much you're able to contribute as investments. Will you be able to annually step up, or will you be able to contribute lump sums regularly? These are factors that we will have to consider when we do goal mapping and other things. And then, of course, we will do a regular review of your portfolio and tell you where you stand and how much is required for you to get to this goal even faster. There might be some people who want to get 30 lakhs in 2 years or 3 years. But for that, they should also ensure that they're able to contribute a higher initial capital. Or if it's a smaller capital, then we have to check if our allocation can be a certain way to help you get there, right? So regular review of your portfolios at all times is what we help you with. This is what the Kodeeswari blueprint looks like. So please don't think that becoming or getting your first crore is impossible. Get on Milestones to Wealth, get on the Kodeeswari program, and you'll know exactly what we are talking about. Thank you all so much for joining today's webinar. We hope you've had something to take away. We'll be very happy to get in touch with each one of you post this webinar. Thank you once again for joining. We hope to see you all very soon.